Are you worried about the UK going bankrupt? This might sound dramatic, but the situation in the UK right now is pretty serious. And it's affecting not just people in Britain but potentially all of us around the world. So, let's break it down in simple terms and see what's really going on. I don't think people understand the full extent of the UK's economic challenges. For a long time, the United Kingdom was known as a powerhouse. Think back to the Industrial Revolution and its role as a global financial hub. The UK was a leader, setting trends, building industries, and driving the global economy. But over the past few years, things have been getting tougher. The financial crisis back in 2008, Brexit, and the COVID-19 pandemic have all hit the UK hard. These events have put the UK's economy in a really tough spot, with big consequences not just for the people living there but for the rest of the world too. Why are there not more people talking about the UK's national debt? As of 2024, the UK's national debt is around £2.5 trillion. Now I know that's a huge number, so let's put it into perspective. That amount is more than the entire economy produces in a year. Imagine if you earned £30,000 a year but you owed £31,000 on your credit cards. That's pretty much the situation the UK is in right now. And just like with personal finances, when a country owes more than it makes, it's a big problem. The UK is borrowing more than it can afford, which is kind of like using one credit card to pay off another. Sooner or later, something's got to give. What's something people don't know about the UK's economic growth? The economy isn't growing fast enough to pay off this debt. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, predicts the UK will only grow by about 1.2% this year, which is really slow compared to other big economies like Germany or the US. When your economy isn't growing, it's like you're running in place while everyone else is moving forward. And when you add a mountain of debt to that, it's easy to see why people are worried about the UK's financial future. Why are there not more people talking about rising inflation? Prices are going up for everything from food to fuel, and it's easy to see why so many people in the UK are struggling. Inflation is around 6.5% right now, which means people are paying a lot more for basic things they need every day. This hits families especially hard, and it's creating a cost of living crisis that's making life really difficult for a lot of people. Imagine going to the grocery store and finding that your weekly shop now costs 10 or 15% more than it did last year, or trying to fill up your car with petrol and seeing that the price has jumped. It's stressful, and for many, it's unsustainable. You might be wondering, how did things get this bad? I don't think people understand the full impact of Brexit. Remember when the UK decided to leave the European Union back in 2016? That was a huge deal, and it's had some serious consequences. The idea was to take back control over laws, borders, and trade. It sounded good to a lot of people at the time, but in reality, it's made things a lot more complicated and, in many cases, worse. Right after the Brexit vote, the value of the British pound dropped like a rock. This made everything the UK imports more expensive, and that's part of why prices are so high now. Plus, leaving the EU meant new trade barriers. Businesses now face delays and higher costs when they trade with Europe, which is making it harder for them to compete. Sectors like manufacturing and farming, which depend on easy trade with Europe, have been hit especially hard. These industries relied on being able to move goods quickly and without a lot of red tape, but now there's a lot more paperwork, more inspections, and more costs. And who ends up paying for that? The consumers. But it's not just about trade. You need to hear this if you're a business owner in the UK. Before Brexit, lots of people from Europe came to the UK to work in industries like healthcare, farming, and hospitality. These workers were vital to the UK economy. They filled jobs that were hard to fill with local workers, often because the pay wasn't great or the work was tough. Now, many of those workers can't or don't want to come, which has left the UK with a big shortage of workers. This is especially bad in the healthcare system. There aren't enough doctors and nurses, and that's making it harder for people to get the care they need. We're seeing longer wait times for medical appointments and surgeries, and the stress on the NHS is growing every day. I'm sure you've heard the news. We need to take a quick look back at history. The UK wasn't always in this tough spot. In fact, it was once the center of a huge empire that stretched across the globe. This empire brought a lot of wealth to the UK. Think about all the resources and money that flowed into Britain from its colonies. This wealth helped make the UK a world leader in industry and finance. London became one of the most important cities in the world, a place where money flowed and business boomed. But things changed in the 20th century. As countries gained independence and the empire broke apart, the UK lost a lot of its wealth and power. Over time, the UK's economy shifted away from manufacturing and industry towards services, especially banking and finance. For a while, this worked out well, with London becoming a global financial center, but it also made the UK more vulnerable to the kinds of economic shocks we've seen over the past few years. When the financial sector struggles, the whole country feels it, because so much of the economy depends on it. I don't think people understand the full impact of the 2008 financial crisis. That was a huge blow to the UK economy. Banks failed, businesses went under, and millions of people lost their jobs. The government had to bail out the banks, which added even more to the national debt. It took years for the economy to start recovering, and just as things were beginning to improve, Brexit and then the COVID-19 pandemic hit. I don't think people understand the full impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the UK's economy. The UK, like many other countries, went into lockdown to try to stop the spread of the virus. Businesses closed, people lost their jobs, and the government had to step in with massive financial support programs. While these programs helped keep people afloat, they also added billions to the national debt. And now, as the country tries to recover from the pandemic, the debt is still there and the economy is still struggling. You need to hear this if you're concerned about the UK's economic future. It's clear that the country is facing some serious economic challenges, and it's going to take a lot of work to turn things around. Rising debt, low growth, and high inflation are big problems that won't go away overnight. The UK needs to find a way to boost its economy, pay down its debt, and help its people cope with the rising cost of living. It's a tall order, but it's not impossible. One thing that's clear is that the UK will need to rethink its approach to the economy. Maybe that means finding new ways to trade with other countries now that it's out of the EU. Or maybe it means investing more in industries that can create jobs and drive growth, like technology or green energy. The world is changing fast, and the UK will need to adapt if it wants to stay competitive. Whatever the path forward, it's going to take some big changes and some tough decisions. I don't think people understand how interconnected our world is and how important it is to have a balanced and resilient economy. What's happening in the UK isn't just a British problem. Other countries can learn from the UK's experience, especially when it comes to making big decisions like leaving the EU or managing national debt. It's a wake-up call to think carefully about the long-term impacts of these choices. For example, in countries like India, there's a lot of talk about becoming more self-reliant and boosting manufacturing. Looking at the UK, we can see how important it is to have a strong and diverse economy that doesn't rely too much on any one sector. It's also a lesson in the importance of planning and preparation, something that's crucial when dealing with issues like trade and labor markets. India has a huge opportunity to learn from the UK's challenges by focusing on building a robust manufacturing base, investing in technology, and creating a strong internal market that can support growth even in tough times. The UK's situation also highlights the need for strong leadership and clear communication. During times of crisis, it's essential for governments to be transparent with their citizens about what's happening and what steps are being taken to address the problems. People need to feel that their leaders are in control and that there's a plan in place to get things back on track. In the UK, there's been a lot of frustration and uncertainty, and that's made the situation even more challenging. You need to hear this if you're concerned about the UK's financial future. Not yet, but it's clear that the country is facing some really tough challenges. The decisions made over the next few years will be crucial in determining whether the UK can turn things around or whether it will continue to struggle. This situation should remind us all to think carefully about how our economies work and what we can do to make them stronger and more resilient. I bet you didn't know how crucial your support is, so don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Success Dude for more easy-to-understand explanations of today's biggest financial issues. And let us know in the comments, what do you think the UK should do to fix its economy? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.